Hello, everybody. Valentin Todorov Familiar here. On today's session, we're going to look at reserve word, system variables, and functions within PTF. Okay. I'm going to actually open up the People book because it's a great place to start and look at that. So we're going to open up the People Tools People book, the online help. We're going to go to Lifecycle Management Tools, the Test Framework. Okay. And within the test framework, all the way down here at the bottom, almost the last topic, you'll see test language reference. Okay. The test language reference is a collection, and I like to call this the index of PTF because all of these are the action drop, the type drop down within the PTF script. But all the way at the bottom, you'll actually see these this reserve words, the system variables, and functions. Okay, and we're going to go through those three sections because they're very useful features within PTF. All right, let's start with reserve words. So reserve words, just like the name entails, are reserved words that perform certain actions, okay? And there's a few in here that I use all the time, all right? The first one that's very commonly used is pound today, okay? And what pound today does is it takes anywhere that you might have a static date, and you can replace that with pound today in the value column. And what that will do is it's going to take the system date time of the running script. So I run it in a week, in a month, in a year. Whenever it's run on that specific date, it's going to take that date time and it's going to place it into the field. So it makes the field dynamic so that you don't have to go into the test each and every time prior to running it, changing that date to today's date, and then having to run it. So that kind of automates that process and takes the system date and puts it in here. And you can, of course, future date those if you know it's you have two fields and from a to date, then it's got to be from today's date when I run it. 2 weeks, you can do plus 14. Okay, so you can kind of do ranges, or you can of course do a -10 or -14. So you can future date it or past date it on the run date. So how you would use this is we can grab pound today. We can jump over to a PTF test here, and wherever we have a date field, hopefully I have a date field in here. Due date. Okay, so right now it's nothing, which is actually the next reserve word I'm going to talk about. We're going to do pound today. So this is due on today. So when I create the requisition, it's due today. Usually, maybe they're due within 10 days. So we can future date that when the requisition is created. No matter when this script is run, it's going to take today's date plus 10 dates, and it's going to put it in the due date field. Okay, and that's all that reserve word does. So you do pound today plus 10, you're set to go. Okay. And that kind of leads us to the next one. Prior to this, because it's not a required field, we could have done pound nothing. What pound nothing does is it puts nothing into that field. It just keeps it blank effectively, or it nulls a field. So if you had something on the page, when the page loads initially, there's something in a field and you wanted to blank it completely out, you can throw in the pound nothing. And if there's a manufacturing ID that kind of by some people code gets injected here, but for this specific situation, you want it to be blank, you would put the pound nothing, the test will run, it will go into the manufacturing ID line, and it will clear it out, okay? So that's why, and it's a good way to record more lines than your test prescribes, so that in the future, if these do get used, this comments, then yes, then I can put in a comment. Comment goes here, okay? And you can put comments in later. But for most things you don't use, you want to keep them blank, okay? So that's the second reserve word. And these two reserve words are used 60 to 70% of all reserve words. These two are kind of the heavy hitters of the bunch, okay? A couple of other ones that I'm going to talk about. Prefix. Prefix is a really important reserve word if you are leveraging prefixes. And what you can do here is you can prefix a value. So say, for example, I want to prefix the description, okay? And in front of the description, what you do is you put prefix, and then you leverage this little field here at the top. This prefix allows you to say, for my company, Lear underscore, anywhere that it has prefix, it's going to obviously prefix it in front of the value. So I can put it in the description field. I can put it in these comments right here. Like I can say either just prefix or prefix and then a value, Lear comment, okay? Or you could just keep it as just prefix like that, okay? The pound behind it is almost like a placeholder that you can do text after it, all right? That's why there is a pound here, but for pound nothing and pound today, those are functions that have kind of an argument after it, so that there is no pound sign after the word, okay? But prefix, and then you put a prefix here. If you keep it blank prefix, then nothing gets put into this field, okay, even though you're using it. But that's another commonly used one, is prefix on there, okay? So we've got prefix, today. Other ones that are kind of heavily used, there's an ignore one, which is great. This one, if you're calling scripts in an end-to-end and you want to ignore a specific test in a test case, you can put ignore in there. Another one is a really good one, is list. Okay, so list, what this allows you to do, if you do have a combo box, kind of a drop-down list, you can actually list each of the values that should be on that drop-down. And when PTF goes and evaluates this line, it's actually going to check each of the values in that drop-down and make sure that they're there. Okay, so it's like a more granular test for any kind of drop-down. And the same for, you can actually select the value as well. So not only check that predefined group, predefined list that are in there, but then also select, and you can kind of see there's like brackets in front of this one, individual. It actually will select the value and check everything else. So you can check everything, but don't actually do anything, or check everything and select something, okay? So list is another great one that you can leverage. And of course, you got to be just cautious. Sometimes you got to do the translate values and not the physical values that are displayed on the user. So it's a great. So those are the big ones that I use all the time. The pound today, pound nothing, which is probably used the most. Prefix and list and ignore are really good ones to use. So those are some uses for reserve words. Okay. The next one I'm going to cover are system variables. So these don't get used as much as people should be using them, but what these are, there's kind of high-level variables that you can call within a test, or you can call in other features within PTF. So one that I use a lot is this, the last one on the list, actually, which is %test.path%. And what this allows you to do, especially if you're doing any kind of log export, so if I go to my runtime options, and I go to my log export, and this creates physical, reports for your PTF test, and you say, hey, for my C drive, in my PTF results folder, results, go ahead and create the test.path. And what this will do is it will recursively, as tests are happening and creating a log, physical log, it's going to create the folder structure that you see on the first tab. So it's actually going to create all the folders and this entire structure within the Windows directory. So it's a good way to kind of mirror and organize your tests by just using that system variable, okay? Another one that's really, I like to use is this page one. Sometimes you have to create very complex conditions within a PTF test and actually check if the page did change. Some actions, did what I did here, did it move to the next page, or is it still stuck on this page because something happened? And you can do conditionals that pass or fail because it never, translated to the next page or next page. So you can actually tag a variable and say, hey, tag my current state, use this variable and use this system variable into a normal variable, and then evaluate it in a conditional statement after I press the submit button. Did it change? Did it go to the next page? So you can kind of mix and match these. And other system variables, extract the current user, the log folder, the test name. You can even do what application server name you have, the test name. This is actually the test name and the test case name are used when you call the usage monitor. It actually uses a system variable and then superimposes that as part of its function into the usage monitor component page. So some of these are intrinsically used within functions within PTF. And of course, you can call and leverage these anytime you need it. There probably isn't a lot of places where you need the execution option database name, but maybe you have tests that go into the web profile and configure stuff, or into integration broker, you need some of that. So there's always a use for these, but it's good to know that these exist and that you can piggyback off and leverage them. All right. That's reserve words and system variables. System variables would be the last one. The last one I'm going to talk about is functions. So these functions are everything that you might be used to in a normal programming language, like in-string, substring, the time, adding, concatenating. So functions that kind of help you to do anything in a test. And I've used the concat one in other tests. I've used the add one where maybe we want to concatenate a variable to a value. So for example, we have this item description, and I can do a concat, open parenthesis, some kind of value, and this, of course, is going to be a string, so I need to put it in double quotes. And all the separators for these system variables are pipes. So you can actually see the delimiters here are pipes. Okay, pipe, that's a delimiter, and it's going to be the same for all of them. So you can look at date. That one doesn't actually have any pipes. In string, substring will. So there you go. This is a separator. Okay. Some languages have commas. Here within PTF, there are pipes. Okay. So say for example, for in string, you put the full string and then what you're searching for, and it'll output its position. Okay. So it's got some really good examples. So if you have A, B, C to G, where C located, it's in the third position, for example. Okay. Obviously, we use in string and substring in conjunction with each other all the time to complete tasks. So PTF has that capability as well. And of course, as you saw here, I'm doing this in the value column itself. All right. So I want to concatenate this pipe with some kind of variable, and I'm going to close it off. Right. And this applies whatever gets computed here into the mixed description field within the PTF test. Right. You can do the same here for the value. Okay. I want to add this value. It's a number I don't have to put in double brackets with some other kind of variable, amount var. Okay, concatenate, add, and it just keeps going. And there's some really good ones in here that you can leverage to make dates and time fields, because you might need it to extract the month out of dynamically through a date, or from a full string. It can actually compute what it is, right? Because February 2. Okay. You can get the seconds out of time. I use a lot of these for generating random numbers, because you can actually concatenate the year, the month, the day, the hour, the minute, the second in one long string. And that should generate a pretty random number, right? If you need a random number each time, maybe for a invoice ID in the voucher create page, you need a random and unique number each time. Well, time is linear, so it's never going to have the exact same date time ever happen again. So you can actually concatenate in one long string and use that for the invoice ID. And there you've kind of generated a random function within PTF. Okay, so kind of piggybacking off some of these, you can kind of has mixed uses, right? Weekday, if you need a date is part of the weekday or weekend, because there are fields in there that only take a weekend or weekday usually for any kind of processing, you can inject those as well. So these are really, really good functions that you can use in that value column to give you kind of more exactness and more variability within your data and what you're injecting within your PTF test. So that's it. So those are, and again, the best reference is where to find this. And again, it's Open Up Your People books, online help, the People Tools, People book, Lifecycle Management, Test Framework, and all the way at the bottom, you'll see that test language reference. And at the bottom of that, there you will see the system variables and functions. So hopefully they gave you a good glimpse of how to use these. We'll catch you again in the next video. Thanks for watching.